is the Legit Real Estate Podcast.
Yeah, you sound
You
confused. So yeah, Legit Real Estate Podcast. We've got TJ Chofie and Holly Regoli.
Regoli.
Yeah, Regoli.
Good morning.
Good morning. So we are going to share some stories today, and do you mind if I go with my little commercial one that I really wanted to share?
Get to it. Yeah, let's hear it.
So I come from commercial property management as my background, and I was there for almost 20 years. So one of the craziest things that ever happened to me happened in a building that I managed in downtown Providence. You might recognize it. It's right in Kennedy Plaza. It's in the skyline of Providence. If you ever watch Family Guy, you'll see the skyline of Providence in there. I was in the building in the middle of 100 Westminster. So it's got a big arch window with lights on it. Okay, so I'll back up a little bit. I started there in 2009. It was crazy because it was actually, I don't know, I was destined to be there. I love this building. It was practically like a child to me because I actually got that job because I had gotten laid off at my other job when I was 6 months pregnant and got a call from a previous boss.
That's harsh. Isn't that illegal?
No, it had nothing to do with me being pregnant, but I was like, what the hell am I going to do? I'm like, I was a facilities manager at the Dunkin' Donuts Center, the convention center, and the VMA. So they actually did a major layoff. And I was like, what am I going to do now? I happened to get a call from a previous boss that same day. And I thought she was calling because she heard the news that I got laid off, but I was like, I hadn't talked to her in months. She's like, no, I'm letting you know I'm leaving where I had worked with her before. And she's like, and I'm going back to CBRE. And I was like, oh, well, that's great. I'm like, well, I got laid off today. So if you need help, let me know. So I ended up, she's like, actually, as a matter of fact, I do need help. But I had to kind of take a step down from working my way up to management. I then had to come back down and be a tenant coordinator, which is basically kind of like an assistant property manager. You sit at the desk and you take all the incoming calls, you handle all the payables, all that stuff, work orders that come in from tenants in the building. So I did that, but then I ended up, eventually I was there for 10 years. And over the course of that time, she ended up leaving and I took her position. So background on this is that I had two buildings we were managing. One was a short little 5-story Class B building. So Class B and Class A, the differences of that is you might have like smaller startup companies in a Class B building. It's not all fancy and is nice. As a Class A building, you've got high-end tenants. Like I had tenants like Bank of America, Providence Equity Partners, KPMG, like really
when you see like one of those little strip plazas that has like a dry cleaner and like some secondhand shop, and those are Class B buildings.
Yeah. So we had those two buildings connected through like a little atrium hallway sort of thing. And the building engineers that were there had been there since the building was built, since the big building was built, which was in the 1980s. So they had been there for a very long time. Now, in the course of that time that they had been there had never been, I'm shaking my computer, never been a fire drill in the building. So part of working for a company like CBRE is you have these standards that you're supposed to have at all of your buildings. So we do these E for excellence kind of audits, and we go make sure you're doing all the things you're supposed to do. Well, one of the things you're supposed to do is every year you're supposed to have a building fire alarm, a fire drill. You know, we always test the fire alarms, but to test a fire alarm, do a fire drill with a 20-story building that has over 800 people in it that has never had a fire drill was a very, very difficult thing to coordinate. The only time the building had ever really been evacuated for a fire drill was when the building was actually on fire. So it wasn't a drill. There was a restaurant in the building at one point that caught on fire and there's flames shooting up the side of the building. And I remember some of the people that had been there during that were telling me that some of the partners in like one of the law firms wouldn't even leave the building. They're like, no, it's fine.
I'm surprised they didn't evacuate on 9/11 because I was in college during 9/11, right? And of course they let us out of school early. I think because Providence was like on the watch list, and Kennedy Plaza was a ghost town Like
Mhm.
it was eerie. They didn't evacuate the buildings on 9/11, or they just kind of did it not in a drill
Maybe
alarm
they
form.
had evacuated it, but maybe it wasn't like fire, like this was like nobody had ever really done a fire drill. So it
All
took
right.
months and months of planning. There was lots of resistance from the tenants, and we managed to, and not just the tenants. There was so much resistance from our building engineers who had been there since the building was built and knew the building. They're like, nobody will, nobody's ever going to go for this. Well, we got it done, and we managed to get the tenants trained. All right, this is what happens. Now, when you're in a high-rise building, if a fire alarm is pulled, whether there's an actual fire or there's an emergency or something like that, the elevators are all recalled to the first floor because
Okay.
you don't want the smoke going up the shafts. You don't want people stuck in the elevators. You don't want, so that all the elevators get recalled to the first floor. So we get the tenants used to doing this. They know that they're supposed to evacuate when the fire alarms go off, and you're supposed to all go down the stairs. We have a meeting rally point. We've done this a few times. I don't even remember what year this is, but we had an incident, and we had some lady come in and she talked to security and wanted to get up to the U.S. Attorney's office in the building. Now, that is a very secure office. So when you go into their vestibule, you have an armed guard there, and you cannot get past there. There's bulletproof doors. You have to get x-rayed. You have to get your belongings have to get x-rayed. It's a very secure spot, right? So they said, okay, well, you can let her up, and then they figured they'll have her in the lobby and talk to her there and stuff. Well, next thing I know is that I'm being told that there's this white substance that she threw all over the security guard in the office. We don't know what it is. We have to shut down the building, and we have to handle this like it's anthrax or something.
No
And we're
way.
like, oh my God. Well, in the midst of all of this, the fire alarm somehow went off in the building. So
Totally
we're
unrelated.
totally unrelated. Like, I don't even remember like what like caused it to happen. So we have to do a stay in place, and at the same time the building's being evacuated. Now it was, so this was a situation where we had the every entity, the US attorneys, I think the FBI, I don't know, maybe CIA, I know at least the fire department, the police, everybody is responding to our building because we don't know what's going on with this white powder substance. We, as the building, have to secure everyone, and we have to shut down the air to the building, because if something was thrown into the building, and it gets, the way air circulation works is you pull the air out of spaces, and then it recycles and gets put back in mixed with fresh
Oh
air.
yeah, you're just spreading it like it's like Return of the Living Dead, right? It's like we're gonna let this smoke out and then it's gonna disperse.
Yep. So we have to try to shut down all the air in the building. And then in the meantime, like I said, I don't even remember what caused it, if we had work going on or whatever, but the fire alarm ended up going on at the same time. So we're trying to tell everyone, and we have like an emergency notification system: shelter in place, don't go anywhere. We don't know what's going on. And at the same time, the fire alarm is going off and people are trying to evacuate the building. And it was complete chaos.
How many people are in that building? Got to be 1,000.
Oh, at least 800. It was around 800 was about the
800
occupancy of the
people not
building.
knowing whether they're coming, sheltering in place, or running down a 20 flights of stairs.
Yep. It was stressful to say the least. Like, it was the most chaotic experience I've ever had to deal with. So then come to find out, so they get the guys in hazmat suits, they get them contained, and they have to bring, there was 2 security guards that were sitting in the vestibule, and they get them outside, and they had to strip down all their clothes. And it was kind of funny because one of the guards was a little big for the tie, that like the suit that they brought for him, so he couldn't quite fit in it. And like, he was a fun guy, he was funny, and like he took jokes a lot, but he was we were all laughing about it later, like seeing them come out and they're all like in everything, and they go through the hazmat stuff. Come to find out, it was baby powder.
So what'd she do it for? She felt like going to jail?
Uh,
You don't let people
Believe
do.
it or not, she was out very quickly. I don't even think charges were pressed on her. Like, I found out later on, like, what the hell?
How do you get away with something like that, even if there's no harm, right?
Yep,
I mean, it's a
yep.
good test, but it was a good test for your system, apparently.
Oh my God. But that was nerve-wracking. Now, on a separate occasion, same building, believe it or not, a squirrel took out half of Providence. You know how you have those little substations, like of electrical substations, whatnot? I guess a squirrel got into one and fried. Well, we ended up, all the power went out in our whole building. Now, when the power goes out, the elevators also are recalled to the first floor. So you have no lights. I think, I want to say we had maybe emergency lights. Now, emergency lights get powered by the generator. Like if you lose power, I think you still have the generator, but I can't remember at that point. Like I think there might have been something wrong with the connection of it or something like that, but everybody's in the dark. So people are trying to leave the building and they're coming down from 20 flights of stairs. I mean, everyone was a mess because you couldn't use the elevators, but we didn't know what was going on. And it turned out it was a squirrel that took out the power for like part of the city. And
No, 20 flights of stairs is no joke.
no,
It really isn't. And like, you get past a certain point, like stairs are beating you up. That's hard.
yeah,
Wow.
well, you also have people that are not physically capable of
That's
really
what I'm saying.
traveling up and down
Okay, so
those
what
stairs.
about right? So you have to when you're doing big commercial like that, I'd imagine there's a million handicap accessibility laws, right? Like you
Hmm.
must have to have ramps and handicap bathrooms. Well, how do you make you don't have ramps going down 20 floors, so what the hell do you do if you're up there?
So the protocol for something like that is that if, so you're supposed to, we had safety wardens for each tenant, right? And they were supposed to know if anybody was currently injured or had a permanent disability that made them not be able to go down the stairs. So when you're sweeping a floor, it's your responsibility to sweeping, like making sure everybody is like out, making sure that that person that has that handicap is in the stairwell. And then when you come down, you notify us so that we can tell the fire department, you have to go up to the stairwell on this floor and carry this person down.
No
So,
kidding.
yep. So we did have protocols in place for that. There's so many protocols, and we had to do, the reason why we had to do like a designated meeting spot. I think, you know what, the reason why we originally wanted to do that drill, not just for the CBRE, like E for excellence audits, we did a citywide evacuation. The Providence Emergency Management Agency had put it together, and it was a citywide evacuation so that we could say, in an instance like 9/11 or something like that, we as buildings all had to have a designated spot to evacuate to. Because if everyone's evacuating and not everyone's accounted for, and you're all going in different directions and don't know where to meet up, then it's complete chaos. So we ended up saying, okay, this is going to be our designated spot, and made sure other buildings in the area had other designated spots so we weren't crossing over.
So
And
you have to
weren't,
coordinate with people from other companies, right? So you're gonna say,
yep.
okay, you're gonna be here. Now there's not a lot of real estate over there. Were you meeting at Kennedy Plaza at like bus stops? Like that to me, that would be like the logical thing to do. I'd go to
No,
like
you're supposed to get as far away from that area as you can. So we made our designated spot all the way on South Water Street along the river. So,
hey, you guys all walking to South Water Street.
yeah, that was like a 5-minute walk. It's not bad.
It's a walk though.
Yeah,
I
if
mean,
but if you
it's a
get,
real walk.
yeah, it's a good walk. So what we started doing is when we would drill, we did that first, like we got our fire drill in place, and started drilling. And then when we did the citywide evacuation, we made that our designated point. And it was a feat. Like I said, we had to have contacts at each tenant that was responsible for making sure all of their people were out. And then they had to all line up, and they had a spot that they were supposed to line up along the river, check to make sure everyone's there. And then when they had the all clear, they were supposed to come see me so I could check them off my list and say, okay, we got it all clear, all clear. Oh, there's someone stuck on the 15th floor. Radio into security and have them let the firefighters know they have to go up to the 15th floor. You know,
That's a project.
oh my God, it was. And I bet it probably would have been better if they were all kids.
Well,
Because
kids, listen.
kids are conditioned to listen. I will tell you, trying to do that with adults, and also adults, many of them that were like, this is bullshit. We don't want to do this. We're too busy. We have other things we have to do. It's hard to explain to them, but look at the safety factor. Like if you think about like I hear the stories of 9/11, and there was one particular guy that he would drill
Were
his,
you, wait, you hear the stories? Were you alive during 9/11?
of course I was.
Oh, okay. I know you're young. I don't know how old you are. I'm not going to
I'm
ask.
only a couple years younger than you.
Oh,
I
all
think
right. Oh, I didn't
yeah,
know.
no, I'm 41.
Oh, you'll be
Do I
so.
look that young?
I mean, I have no perception of age, but the amount of people the amount of people that like weren't alive for 9/11 that I associate with, like,
Really?
I mean, yeah, I mean, my sister's like, that's a long time ago, or not even alive, but alive and aware. So
Hmm.
people who are 30, like they might have been alive, but they don't remember it.
Yeah, no, I was in my college dorm, like,
Oh,
and I
all right.
remember,
Okay. All right. So, all right. No, no,
yeah,
sorry.
that's
Yeah,
okay. No, I
sorry.
have to ask. I thought you were my husband's age. How old are you?
I think I'm 29.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think.
I'm permanently
I act
29.
17. No, I'm 45.
Okay,
So
yeah.
I was getting ready for school that morning, and I used to live downstairs in my grandparents' house, and I only had 6, 10, and 12. So because we didn't have cable down there. Who watches TV? But I was watching I was watching it, and then I was like, well, I still got to go to school. So after the second plane hit, I still went to class, and by the time I got to class, they were like, half of Johnson and Wales is from New York and New Jersey.
Mhm.
Like it's commuters, New York and New Jersey. Like people not coming from Wyoming to go to Johnson and Wales, right?
No, that's
So
URI
all
too,
those
and I was
people
at
were like
URI.
knowing people that work there, so they dismissed us. So I took the bus to school like always. I get pretty much kicked off campus, and then it was like, okay, I couldn't get back. I had to walk back because they ripped to shut down. Everything shut
Everything.
down because Providence was on, like, I guess we're between, Boston and New York, so it kind of made sense. But
Yeah.
anyway, so back to you people now. We've got you've got like grown ass men that you're telling that they have to leave work for like an hour, and they're like, yeah, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. And like I said, these are people that during an actual building fire 20 years previously, that because a lot of them that been there for a long time, their assistants were telling me, no, they wouldn't leave the office. One of them said that her boss threw his phone at the door and said, leave me alone, I'm not leaving.
No
Yeah.
kidding.
Yep. So I will say, like, so you have to get the cooperation of everyone. And there were periods of time, I mean, I had to fight with them, and I was like, but you don't understand. If you're not drilling and you don't get this embedded in your head, then if an actual emergency happens, your employees are not going to know what to do. So I remembered when we were training for the with Providence Emergency Management, they had talked about the story of this one person that was in 9/11 that had drilled his employees to evacuate the building. And every one of his employees, I believe, got out, or at least almost everyone, and he ended up dying because he went back in to save other people. But it was that practice, that repetition, that knowing where you needed to go. So I tried to stress that. There were so many people, and you know what? I don't know if I can say this, but I think I'm gonna. I left there in 2019, and I've been told they haven't done any drills since I left.
Haven't done it since.
I could be
I think
wrong,
the other
but
thing, right? So with kids, when they have a fire drill at my kid's school, right? They all go to one spot. There's nowhere else to go. None of them have cars, right? So they're going where they're told, and they're going to stand there. If I leave a building at Kennedy Plaza and I can go to South Water Street to check in, or I can go to the mall for lunch, I might go to the mall for lunch. Like, you don't know what people are going to do. They have free will. This guy's like, you know what? Screw this. When that alarm goes off at 12, I'm going to golf.
yeah.
And now here's Holly trying to check a list, right? We're radioing into dispatch to find out where the guy is. And the guy's got a tea time at Triggs.
When I tell you, there are so many different components in this. So it's not just it would be me, my assistant manager, um, we had three or four building engineers, our entire security team, and then all of the contacts at every single office were involved in this. So it was definitely a task to do. And there was always something that would come up during one of these drills that's like, oh wait, we got to make this better next time because this happened. One of the exits that we have is by our loading dock, and you have a sign, you can't park, this close to the door for the exit, because if you do, then it bottlenecks people and they can't get out properly. So sure enough, one of the drills we have, somebody's parked in the loading dock and it blocks people from getting out properly. And it's like, oh, well, now we know we got to fix it, but at least we know now before an actual emergency. So
Right.
I'm a very big advocate for trying to do emergency prepared
You know, when
training.
we were little, I feel like my mother used to talk about it all the time, what to happen if there was a fire in the house. And I don't think I've talked to my kids about it ever. Like and they're high up. I mean, I would just throw them out the window would be my
Mhm.
solution. But like, yeah, people underestimate like how quick you have to make a decision and how important drilling is.
Mhm.
Like you don't even think of it when you're doing it. It's such a nuisance. We all remember high school. That was such a nuisance. And then in high school, like you would always want to go hang out with your friends, but you were supposed to stay in your pod with your class. At least that's how we used to do it. And then by the time we were seniors, we realized that that just meant we were taking the period off because we would find out period 5 fire drill. Well, you won't find me period 5. I'll be on Middle Spring Avenue. So anyway, how that's a great freaking story right there. I wonder if that real estate brokerages are doing fire drills because it's so like our brokerage has almost 300 people, and if you go to the office right now, there might be 20.
There,
So like like, what are we doing? Like, how do you can't prepare everybody unless you have everybody there. So is there even a point?
and I think even now, since COVID, so many people are working remotely. So how do you handle something like that with the people that are not in? I mean, I would send out a whole thing of emergency procedures and I would do a newsletter that was supposed to get distributed to everyone in the building. So people were supposed to read them, but I know when I get newsletters, I don't get a chance to read them half the time myself. So
Especially the longer they are, like something like
mhm,
that. Now, of course, in our building, there's number of exits and it's easy to find, but it's one level basically. It's really two one level buildings because they barely attach. But once the elevator shuts down, if you're upstairs, you have two exits. Like I'm sure it's you know how broker is. It's by the book. But who's reading that? You're the CEO of a company that's on the 18th floor of a friggin' building in downtown Providence. You got time to read a procedural book on
mhm.
fire drills? You're like, yeah, you read
No.
it.
And then going back to like what you were saying about not drilling at home, that makes me think like I think through things, but I haven't actually drilled our kids. Like I have anxiety issues where the only way I can get through them is like, well, if this happens that I'm worried about, let me see what would happen if this happens. Let me walk through the scenario in my head. So I have walked through like I have those like fire escape ladder stairs thingies that you can throw out the window to get down because the way my house is set up, our bedrooms are all upstairs. So if you can't get down the main set of stairs and out the front door, which I mean, I'm not in a big house, so I can't see. I don't know. If a fire starts, we have multiple windows upstairs. We can throw the ladder out and get out that way because it's a pretty big drop.
We don't have the ladders. I mean, you know what concerns me more than anything else is there's one set of stairs going from upstairs to downstairs. I think most houses are like that. Most
Mhm.
people have one way up, one way down, right? So if there was something that blocked off that stairwell, then there's no way down. There's no other way. Like you're out the window.
That's why I have those things. You hang them on the windowsill and it's under our bed. But you think of a fire happening, the number one thing I try to make sure is that the smoke detectors are working because
Yep.
you want to wake up. So I've heard of so many horror stories where it's smoke inhalation that has gotten people because they didn't wake up and they died in their sleep because of the smoke. The smoke will get you
Right.
because of the fire.
It's true. And
So,
you're right. And so my cousin's a fireman, and the number one place fires start in the house is not even the kitchen, which you would think it is. It's the dryer vents,
I
right?
didn't realize
So
that.
most fires start in the dryer, which is funny because when I sold his house, I said, "So your dryer vents are clean," and he's like, "Absolutely not." But they mostly start, and luckily our laundry room is far enough away from everything where by the time, like I don't know, it's in a good place. It's not like below the bedrooms or something like that. But you a lot of people have like you got your kitchen. If you have a two-level house, a lot of times your kitchen, if it's on the first level, it's right above a bedroom's right above it, which always
Yeah,
scares me. It
yeah.
does.
I've heard
Anyway,
of
that's
more things starting from electrical outlets. I've had so many friends that had their phones plugged in and the freaking phone things, the box started
right.
to melt.
No
Yeah.
shit.
So now I'm
Well,
like, so those are the things I get really scared about, is like those are things you can't control. I have a fireplace in the house. I use my wood stove all the time in the winter. We don't keep a fire going overnight, but we'll let it go to bed. We'll go to bed with coals in it.
yes.
But I do still get nervous. We have our chimney swept once a year. We have a liner in it, but
We don't do well, we don't use we don't dry clothes overnight or when we leave the house or anything like that. Like just if I'm awake and alert, like I'll smell it. But when we go to bed at night, like everything's out,
yeah,
you know. Speaking of everything being out or hazards, do I have time for a quick story? I can't
yeah.
see a timer, so I don't know how much time we
It's
have.
not telling us that we've got to quit
I
yet.
know. I usually have a little timer, and that's kind of how we budget how long to go for a story. But anyway, I'm gonna try and
It'll
get
tell us when we're running out of time.
so two-family house. I get a call yesterday. Now I had 10 yards of mulch delivered yesterday, and I had the goal of like laying out all this mulch, like I'm gonna do all my stuff. Anyway, phone call. Boom. First floor, there's water coming from the ceiling of the shower. Water coming from the ceiling. Okay. I
From the
go
ceiling of
to
the shower. Like you're in the shower
yeah,
and the ceiling. Okay.
coming, it's a tile, the ceiling is tiled. So there's really no explanation for it. So I go there, and sure enough, there's water leaking from the ceiling of the shower. So I call the second floor tenant and say, is your water running? I knew it wasn't because I couldn't hear it. He said, no, my water's not running. I said, well, there's water coming to the first floor. He goes, well, we've got a hole in our tile. If you can picture like a tile grid, and then one of the tiles is like a soap holder, it's like a little square, you put your soap there. Well, apparently that fell off on the
Fell,
second.
fell off.
Now, I had a house before where it fell off, and until you can get it retiled, what you do is pretty much cover it with plastic wrap. Like you just do something so the water doesn't get in there.
Yeah.
Well, this bozo, and I hope you're listening to the podcast, you bozo, had his whole family showering with a hole in the shower. So over time, the water's going into this hole. Now, of course, he didn't tell me this until I asked what's going on up there, because had he told me, it would be fixed already. Tenants, if you're a renter, just tell your landlord they'll fix it quicker. If you don't tell them, they don't fix it. Anyway, so now we get a situation where the water's coming in, and it's riding along the bottom of their tub, and it's settling on the ceiling on the first floor. So based on this and this alone, like
Oh,
when that lease is up on May 31st, you got to go.
yeah.
Like, and any profit I made from that unit when I have to redo the bathroom on the first floor because of this, it's gone.
Yep.
It's gone. So if you think you're going to be a landlord to clean up and all this, when you do the math on a notebook paper and you say, I'm going to make this much cash flow each and every month, all it takes is one tenant to do something that costs you a big job, and your profit is pretty much wiped out.
Yeah.
It's freaking scary.
Yep. Yep. I mean, I learned a long time ago that being a landlord is not about not so much about getting the income every month. It's about getting the equity over time.
Yep.
Because
And
there's
the
so many things
depreciation now.
there's so much stuff that comes up that wipes away that profit, that leaves very little for you to be able to operate with most of the time.
Yeah. And really it takes one big project, because you can budget for snow removal, you budget for landscaping, you can budget for the bills, you can do all this kind of stuff. But one guy, ignores a hole in his shower, and now you got to redo 2 bathrooms, and there's your profit. And
Yep.
it's freaking frustrating. I mean, a vacancy will kill you too. I think most people understand you're going to have some level of vacancy during the course of time, but the capital projects is not something that I felt like doing, and I still don't feel like doing it.
No, I still have some major capital projects at the one multifamily that I have. I'm trying to add another unit to it. But in that unit, like some of the problems that come up along the way, like I think I told you about the guy with the 7 forks in the drain. No,
Yes.
7
Yep.
forks. Yep. Well, that ended up causing a leak downstairs, and it got all over the tenant's couch. And at some point, I'm gonna have to go back in and paint the ceiling. And then not that long after that, it was leaking again. And I was like, well, what's going on? There's no leak. There's a bowl that I left underneath the pipe in the kitchen just in case like the new stuff I put there didn't work. I left the bowl there. And it's not that, it's bone dry. And the tenant had just taken a shower and I'm like, what the hell? Like it's a brand new, like before he moved in 2021, it was a brand new whole bathroom, the shower, everything, all the plumbing's new. So I was like, well, what could be happening? And my plumber went and took a look at it and he's like, did he shut the curtain? Like, he's like,
No,
I took the drain out. Well, he's like, I took the drain out, everything looked fine. He's like, I resealed the drain, I caulked around the drain. He's like, it looks fine. Like, my tenant insists that, he had a towel on the floor, there was no water getting on the floor, but we still don't know what happened. Hopefully it was just, I would hope that the drain didn't like fail within a couple of years, but I'll tell you what, nothing lasts anymore. I have a hot water tank at my own house. I put it in, it was October of 2020. It's already bad. It's one of the new hybrid, like $3,500 hot water tanks, and I have to have it replaced under warranty but now I have to pay for the labor for it, because it's bad.
It's crazy. So we hear about shrinkflation, which is when companies shrink the size of the packaging so that way they can keep the cost at the same thing. And we always hear about that at the grocery store, but it does affect materials too in our world. So there's a great picture that's been going around the Facebook about what a 2x4 looked like in 1940, and then like let's say 1940, 60, 80, and now. So first of all, the 2x4s we built houses with now are barely from real trees, right? They sure don't measure 2x4 anymore. Like, so they've already shrunk, and now the quality of everything that we're buying, it's just shittier. And like, you just know if you buy any home furnishings for your house, like, you got to replace them. Whereas, you go to grandma's house and that bureau is still made out of solid walnut, you can't move it and it's going to survive the Holocaust. And then you go buy one made out of particle board, friggin' particle board, and you spill a cup of water on it and the whole thing rots down.
Yep, I totally get it. And I always go back to the hot water tanks. I remembered one of the first houses I bought had an ancient hot water tank. Not a snowman, but it had a really old hot water tank.
The copper one?
I don't know. I don't think it was copper,
So the
but
old hot water tanks, the copper ones, they'll last you literally life.
Yep. It's nuts. This one was like 20 or 30 years old. And then the other hot water tank I had that was maybe 7 or 8 years old let go. And I'm like, well, what the hell? I'm like, why is this happening? And I think the plumber at the time that came in explained, he's like, well, obsolescence. He's like, when they make them like this, they last forever and nobody has to buy another one. So now they make them so that you have to replace them every so many years so that they keep themselves in business.
And you see that with televisions, we know that with televisions. Actually, ours is doing one of our televisions is doing sound with no picture. So you can go get this TV repair people, but a new television of that size is like $200, and so you might as well just go get it. Whereas, again, grandma's house is rock solid. That TV is from like 1962. It takes 3 guys to lift it. It's about as wide as a refrigerator, and that thing it's going to outlive all the little cheaply manufactured products that we buy. And when you're building or flipping a house, you really start to notice the quality of the materials. You have to sacrifice somewhere because everything's so expensive.
Yep.
So, yeah, exactly. So it's like, well, you're building a deck and you want to buy this, and it's like, yeah, I want to do that, but what I really can do is this cheap pine and stain the hell out of it because it's the only thing I can do. And damn well it's going to look pretty this year. Next year, when some puddles form on it, it's going to all start to warp and bend. Nails are going to start to pop up. But what can you do? Everything costs so much.
It does. And that leads to a lot of fun things when we get to home inspections, right? We start.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And the old school inspectors always tell you how they don't make them like they used to, or they'll get, what they do? They get really excited when they see something built a long time ago that has like a steel beam. They get all excited, or instead of, or like real trees used to make this wood. I had a home inspection this week, which is wild, and the hot water tank's going, but this guy had a crack. So all the CO2 that's being made by his boiler is just pretty much like exiting into the basement.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Guy's had the house for 15 years, never noticed. I don't know how he's alive.
Well, hopefully he's got CO2 detectors and,
You would think.
you know,
Well,
those are all the
that's
fears I
sad.
have. So I have all the detectors. I've actually taken um smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors with me on vacation to places when I've stayed
So
with
sad.
family that I have, because like I said, I have anxiety, and I'm like, but my anxiety gets put into is squashed as long as I know, like, I wear my seatbelts, I have smoke detectors, I try to take all the precautions that I can take. So I knew I was visiting family up in Maine and they didn't have smoke detectors. So I took smoke detectors with me and like put them in the bedrooms with me so that I could actually go to sleep at night.
Oh, that's a trip. You know, what's funny is the amount of people, the amount of houses that I go in where the smoke detectors are just taken down. Like,
Oh yeah,
why? Like they just
because
take them down because why? Because when you cook, it goes off. But not the what's that got to do with the one in the bedroom? Or the battery's tripping, so you take it off?
I wanted to choke my tenants. I went to my house and I was checking through because I forgot why. Oh, I was changing the batteries and up I was putting do not, I was checking things. Oh no, I was doing a home thing like energy study. And as I'm going through, every single one of my tenants had no smoke detectors up. I'm like, you do realize that none of you have smoke detectors in place, and if there's a fire, this whole house is going to go down because nobody's going to know. So I went through and I put the 10-year sealed battery and I put stickers, do not touch, do not remove. You will be evicted if you remove. I was like, and
Really?
I put them everywhere. So I had to spend a lot of money on them, but they all took them down because they were beeping and then they stopped working. They were only like 2 years old. So I have a whole bag of them that I want to try to go back to the company and say, what the hell? These all failed because, I don't know. But
You know,
they all
I'm of a good mind to like just hardwire even houses that I don't have to hardwire the smoke detectors. Like on a two family, you can get away with the battery ones. Just hardwire them so that they're there because it's too risky. And the last thing I want is for something to happen and then insurance not cover it because it wasn't, the smoke detectors weren't there. Because
yeah.
insurance, they're looking for reasons not to cover you. Actually, our 1 minute warning did pop up. Go figure.
All right,
This
then
has
we
been
should
a weird
tell
day tech wise.
everyone where they can find us. So we are the Legit Real Estate Podcast. We are on YouTube. So please like and subscribe to us there. Follow us, share us. We are on Spotify. We are on Apple Pod stuff. I can't remember what it's called. It's where Apple
Wherever
puts
Apple's
the
making you watch
podcast. Wherever you listen to or watch stuff, please like, subscribe, follow, and all that stuff. We really hope that you're enjoying this. We like chatting about all this fun stuff, and we hope you have a great day.
Yeah, for real. Send stories. But that was a
Yes,
good one today.
please.
I'm trying to. Next time I drive to the city, which hopefully isn't soon, but next time I drive by Providence, I'm going to look at that building and be like, Holly had to evacuate that. Bless her heart.
Yep,
Listen,
yep.
I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you next week.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye bye.